First off, thank you for having me. It's definitely a pleasure to speak with you and to have this platform to reach out to college level students because I was one not too long ago. And really, the way how I got here to the point where I'm working for infrastructure projects, building great things and places that really are in need of these types of, when I say infrastructure, we're talking about roads, we're talking about power lines, we're talking about wastewater treatment and how water gets to your house. All of these very vital things for a community that touches every single person, you know, even people in their, you in your college dorms, you're taking a shower, the light goes on, that's all infrastructure that's getting to you. The college itself that exists there is infrastructure. And all of this I did not know. All of this I very much came to understanding from really just a series of events. It started from going off to college and thinking that I knew what my major would be. And I could have sworn that I was going to have a political background. I loved politics, local politics, national, international politics, and I thought that was it. And little did I know that when I started, we got to a point where me going to classes and me trying to understand what I was doing, I was re-educated as to what my passions were. You know, in the early 2000s, it was a lot about politics was the environment was politics, even till today. And we talked a lot about what leaders should do about sustainability, how the environment, how much of an impact it should have in the agenda of our leaders. And it was from there that I learned what sustainability in environment could be. You know, how we can start investing in alternative energies. And from there, I started learning more about urban planning. How can we be more efficient? How do we as a community take environmentalism seriously when we want to reduce the emissions from cars, when we want to make sure that the energy that we use in our day-to-day lives isn't just flowing continually? How can we reduce? How can we be more efficient? And from there I learned about urban regional planning. You know, how best to actually become more efficient. And that's when my entire life took a change. It was looking at, wow, this is what gets me up in the morning, because there are all these linkages that go on, you know, things that I take for granted that I didn't even know that there's an entire complex system behind it. So knowing that very simple things seemingly have a very complex background, that's what really sparked my interest in urban planning, urban design, and then we move forward into how do we actually implement that. And it's just a series of really projects, people who are saying, we want to build a new solar plant. We want to create a new light rail system because highways aren't the answer to having workable cities. And I said, wow, how do we actually do that? So taking it away from the theory of urban and regional planning and how do we actually get these projects off the ground? From those projects, I said, I want to be with those guys who say, we're going to start building a solar plant tomorrow, or at least this is our intent. Where's the next step? And what I realize is that it all comes down to people who say that they want a project, and people who are able to find financing for that project, and people who are able to put the contracts and agreements together that will actually bring all this into realization. Because there are a lot of smart engineers out there. There are a lot of smart, you know, industrial guys that, you know, actually do the building, do the designing, and I think that's great, but that is just not my specialty. So, you know, I said, I think if I can go and create a background where these documents, these agreements, this financing, we can get all this together, then that's going to enable all of these brilliant scientists to get their technology up and running. And that's how I got here. And really, it's amazing. It went from something where I just wanted to be in a political sphere to a passion, to learning about how to implement that passion. And, if you're going to do the hard work with implementation, making sure you have the passion will get you up in the morning. And I was very lucky to really just follow my intuition. If you see something that makes you feel good, you want to get up in the morning, pursue it. And really, even though the path, like my path, I had no idea. But if you follow the passion and you keep your eyes open and you listen and talk to as many people as you can, that path will show itself to you. You just have to be very, very, very diligent about identifying it and going after it. And, the legal profession is just the most refined version of getting those contracts together. It really helped me put a fine point on the raw passion that got me here. So that's where I am today. And I'm just going to keep on pushing forward and pushing forward. But when I look back and say what got me here, it's really just identifying the passion, keeping my eyes and ears open. Of course, always after asking the question, keeping your eyes and ears open, and then identifying the way in which you can refine all of these things into a professional pursuit that will really allow you to have a day-to-day, a career, and a profession that'll keep you building. And I'm very, very happy to be here today. Well, there were kind of really hard stops. There were hard stops for me. So what I mean by that is when I was going through my first pursuit and saying that, okay, politics is what I want to do, I allowed myself to actually feel and look around and say, okay, is there something, why is this really interesting to me? What's drawing me here? And when I kept the field very broad, and I said, okay, well, there are particular subjects that keep calling back to me. It was always, for me, that environmentalism, but not just as an idea, but as something that's, you can implement. So you can say when we were talking about sustainability, it went from everything from, changing the way you eat and the way that food is processed. It went from making sure that you reduce the amount of energy that you're using. It went toward protecting and conserving different wildlife. But I would always think, okay, these things are very well and good, and they're amazing, but what is what really speaks to me? What really spoke to me at the time was, okay, well, what can I do about it? And what could I do about it in the sense where it's, taking the skill that I know that I have. It's saying, how can I apply myself to this situation, and how can I be most helpful? So the hard stop was knowing that the political sphere wasn't going to do it for me. So I opened my eyes and I said, okay, what is it about this sustainability, environmentalism that I find really, really attractive? And it's the fluidity of it. It is that murkiness. It's because you're not just looking at the political realm, or you're not just looking at wildlife conservation, or you're not just looking at, very efficient greenhouse building design. You're looking at all of it. I liked being a generalist. I liked, being very multidisciplinary, being able to look at different problems and apply different methods from different fields. So you can, be a jack of all trades in a sense, but, take a lot of pride in not being a master of any of them. You can say, okay, well, you can delegate that to someone who you can see is a lot smarter than you in that realm. So it was a hard stop. I'm saying, okay, I'm really interested in looking at this multidisciplinary approach, but it's a hard stop in saying, I know that going and becoming a specialist in this particular field is something that I am not, that doesn't call to me. That's not what's getting me up in the morning. What's getting me up in the morning is being able to meld all those things together and make sure that they sync and make sure that everyone who is very, very intelligent can talk to other people who are very, very intelligent in different fields. And it's that sort of community building in a very small singular project sense is what I found to be, incredibly informative. That was the first. I said, okay, I like that. That's what I really like to do. And then getting to the legal field, it was more so, how can I refine this? This is what I like to do. How can I refine it? And when I looked and saw what is allowing all these different fields to speak to each other, they were just the written agreements, because you can speak and you can organize, but also there needs to be someone to actually boil that down, put it into writing, and start implementing. And honestly, I was mentored and I was coached to get to a place where they say, the legal field is going to be the best place for you, because when you're young, you're saying, I think that, just being in a field and being involved in it is great, but I couldn't translate how that feeling of, place. I'm like, this is what I know I want to do. It felt great in the academic sense, but I didn't know how to translate that into an actual job. So being able to speak to people and tell them what I really liked, and being able to identify, I like being able to talk to all these different people and make sure that when they interact, it's a seamless interaction. I had 3 very good mentors who were telling me that, you're young. If you want to learn how to communicate through different groups in a very seamless fashion, that's what the law is. You can see that, you have your litigators in the courtroom who are really dealing with disputes. That's one type of law. But then you have contracts, transactional type of law that just allows people to say, hey, you have 2 groups of people, we have an agreement, how can we get this over the line? And it's that sort of thinking about an agreement, a deal between 2 people, and making sure that, Jack over here has an idea, Joe has an idea, and they think they're both speaking the same language, but when you reduce it down to paper, you see that there's a little bit of differences in the details. So who smooths that over? And I was told repeatedly that if you like doing this, being able to smooth over these differences, to be able to communicate between 2 people who want to get something done, but just can't quite communicate to each other. If you like that, bringing 2 different houses together to a seamless accord, you should really look into transactional and contractual and contract law. And I took a leap of faith because I just really deferred to people who I knew were listening to me, and I knew had many more years ahead of me, so they can translate and say, what it sounds like is that you would be so much more at an advantage if you had a legal background. It puts a fine tip on what I wanted to do. It's just like you have all this raw passion, but you have to funnel that into something that's going to actually allow you to take your idea into something where you can actually build a career out of it. So it was a real leap of faith, but I'm glad I took it. And it really did just reinforce itself over and over and over and over and over again, to the belief that, if you can get everyone in the same room, reduce an idea down to paper, you can get, a new project to come to life. Because all of the disputes, you're not dealing with it on the back end where people need lawyers to go to court. You're dealing with disputes before they happen. There's a whole lot that I did not know. All I knew is that I would tell people, well, I'm getting up in the morning every day, and people are asking me, what are you studying? What do you want to do? And I can only reflect and I say, well, when I read about, the latest innovative, energy-saving technology that they're using to build skyscrapers, that interests me. When I hear about how, let's say World Trade One, after 9/11 and the Twin Towers came down, they had to rebuild Freedom Tower, which is now World Trade One. How did that happen? Who was involved? And I hear that, oh, well, you have all these different, categories of people between local lawmakers, federal lawmakers, the wives and children and husbands and just families of the deceased, the New York Police Department, the Fire Department in New York. All these different coalitions are coming together. How does that happen? And just by me asking those questions, telling people what I'm interested in, it always took me to someone who had an answer. And listening to them over and over, when I say there are so many mentors, just when you sit down with someone earnestly and you try and really absorb their knowledge and wisdom, because by you asking a question and sitting down with someone and saying, okay, I have a feeling that you have expertise, or you have more understanding of a certain situation than I do. You take that as mentorship. If you sit down in a serious discussion, you say, I have a question, or I have a thought. Can you have a dialogue with me? Can you help me better understand even my own thoughts? I take that as mentorship. So I've had many. And, the more traditional roles of a mentor that you would think someone who's recurring and checking in on you, you would be shocked just by being responsive. When you start a dialogue and someone sends you an email, and then you send a response, and they send you an article, and then you send a response to the article, and you ask about an event that's going on or what they're doing because they're in the field that you want to be in. I didn't need to go up to someone and say, would you be my mentor? Just by being responsive and keeping up dialogues with people, I found myself being mentored, and I was consistent with them.
Right. So
It's a very clear back and forth, and sometimes it took a while. It took a while, but you have to realize that a lot of people have a lot of things going on in their lives. Sometimes it may be a month, maybe 3 months go by, but not limiting myself to putting the obligation. I'm saying, well, I'm expecting my professor to be my mentor, and they haven't gotten back to me, so I guess this mentorship isn't going well. No, you ask a question, you put it out there, but you don't stop asking questions. You ask as many people as you think can possibly have an answer, and you'll see that it'll start to materialize. The back and forth will start to materialize. I had I had a mentor who was an early boss of mine, who I thought he was going to teach me about the professional environment of building development in New York City. No, he became my best mentor for just teaching me about time management, because although there wasn't a whole lot to talk about, how do I grow in my professional association in a particular city, he was a person who was always asking me, well, how are you doing? How much time did you take for yourself? How much time did you spend toward reading a new article for this particular profession? Well, you need to spend your time talking to people, doing your work, taking care of your own health, expanding your mind by reading different articles. And I said, who has time for all that? I only have so many hours in the day. And he really said, he taught me that it's all about your time management. If you dedicate yourself to a particular profession, you have to know what's going on there. So, and if you're going to eat your breakfast in the morning instead of, listening to the radio or getting dressed to, a new album that just dropped, just download a podcast the night before. So when you're getting dressed, you can listen to something that is particularly from your profession. It's being able to find those little, find those moments in the day that you can really maximize to help yourself. And being able to not only expand your day by finding those little pockets, but also to really limit yourself. If you say, okay, well, I'm going to go and either go to the gym or go and socialize. If you really look ahead of time and say, you know what, I want to dedicate 3 hours to this, or I want to dedicate 2 hours to this, just put the cap on it once you get to that time, and it doesn't have to be a hard rule, but it'll help you understand that, anytime that I say I'm going to go and, work out, or I'm going to go and, just relax and watch a movie, I think it's only going to take me an hour or 2 hours. At the end of the day, I can always say I'm running over, 30 minutes extra, 45 minutes extra. So he taught me that you're not aware of your own time in the day. And this was something that I learned that was completely different. I thought he was going to teach me about, who to talk to, who to network with. No, it was a completely different mentorship, just because he had something to teach me that he was really good at. And I learned just by continuing a conversation, having no expectations other than, the original. This person has something to teach me. This person knows more than I do. And if you identify that and you're true to that, you're responsive to it, you're going to learn something. You're going to find yourself in a mentorship. That's all. Anyone. Anyone. Yeah. They don't have to be older. They can be younger. They can be younger. I didn't know what social media. Well, look, I know what social media was, but how do you make it work for you? I didn't know that. I had a Facebook that I haven't used in, God knows how long, but someone says, you have to learn how to use Instagram the right way. You got to learn how to use Twitter the right way. And, I'm 30. This is like a 24-year-old. So I'm just like, okay, all right. When you acknowledge that someone knows more than you, you got to go all in. I'm like, okay, I don't think so, but I just said that you know more about Instagram, Snapchat, you know more about all of it than I do. So let me see what you're doing. And that's how I'm going to maximize myself. And keeping that dialogue going, believe me, they'll teach you something. I learned a whole lot. So you'll be surprised where mentorship can come from. All you have to do is just identify, wow, that person's really good at something that I'm not. And just ask a question. Yeah. Okay, well for me, it's pretty, I'm a product of Florida, a very, very proud product of Florida. I went to Florida Public Schools, Palm Beach County, gigantic county. I think at the time it was the 5th largest public school district in the country. And we were large. We weren't necessarily wealthy. We were just there was a whole lot of people. Public school was Wellington High School. It is in Palm Beach County. And the one interesting thing about Palm Beach County is that everyone knew the high schools in the area. So it was good in the sense that, I did a lot of extracurriculars. So I had a friend group of people who just weren't going to my high school. I have a brother who did the same thing. It was just through sports. But there was a network of people. It was a network before I knew what a network was. This group of people who were incredibly just informative. I would ask them, how's it going at your school? And they would tell me what they're doing. So that was my first eye-opener, knowing that at my high school, some people we may be reading these books, or we maybe, have, I don't know, let's say about 3 hours for extracurriculars or sports after school or something like that. And I would just see that there's there's disparity here. There's a difference, like, same county, same school district, but, let's say Palm Beach Gardens High, which was about, 30 minutes up the interstate versus my high school. There's a little bit of difference there. They're reading things that we're not reading, so I knew that there is an impact because people are doing different things, but it's not necessarily limiting. The best thing is just to know that they're happening. So from there, I knew that, okay, different places have different things to offer. So that's what everyone realizes when they start applying to colleges. For me, it was easy because you go from state high school to state college. Florida, they treated their own very well. So they said, okay, we want to keep a lot of the high school grads that graduate, we want to keep them in Florida, no brain drain. It was good. There were a lot of programs, a lot of strong recruitment that came out, saying that if you go to high school in Florida, come to our state colleges, and you would apply, and there would be so much great outreach. But really, it was just a function of being in the state, and knowing that the institution was a good one. And it served me very well for all the years that I was an undergrad. But then again, I left. I worked for a little bit before I decided I was going to go back to grad school, go back to law school, and then I went back to Florida. It was a good place for me. I knew that not only that my family's there, not only that I know the state very well, it felt like home. It was a good place for me to be, and the institutions were always great. The schools, the universities were always great. Just knowing how to speak to the administrators there, listen to them when they say that we have resources. They left me wanting for naught, because all the resources there I could barely use. But for me, these universities and institutions, the best thing that they had to offer were the resources of the people working there and the resources of being these gigantic universities. There were so many. You go to a library right now, in this day and age, if I want to get a New York Times subscription, I got to pay $10 a month. If I want to go and, read something, if I want to go and watch something, everything's a subscription service. Yeah. You go to university, it's endless subscriptions, and you've already paid. Mm-hmm. So imagine that if you were paying for your magazines, if you were paying for your newspapers, if you were paying for your Netflix subscriptions, you're paying for everything, and then not use them. Mm-hmm. And that's what I never wanted to do. Mm-hmm. But there's an endless amount of resources there, and you have all of these great shepherds. I would have to say, definitely all. Look, professors were great. They're amazing. Any professor that you have will always have the standard, my door is always open, come to office hours. Whether students choose to use that or not, look, I'll be real. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But the best thing that I always knew is that if I had, a paper to do, if I had something to research, if I had something to read, honestly, college library. College library, best resource I've ever had.
In the school, really.
The best resource I've ever had in my life. Even times where I graduated and I said, man, if only I had, this gigantic library. I called up both University of Florida, both University of Miami, and I called the library and I said, well, okay, what do you offer as far as alumni services? Because I know that there was nowhere else I can get that rich treasure trove of just, here's information, and it's all for you.
Mm-hmm. And they also share information amongst colleges also. Mm-hmm. So you're really expanding your knowledge by being with these universities. Mm-hmm. It's not limited to that university.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's a good. I remember there was a essay that I was writing on It was development in Latin America. And there was this book that I was going to be perfect. And I go to the library and I said, "You guys have it? I don't know. No, I can't find it." They say, "Oh no, we have it available. We don't physically have it. It's at University of Ohio. So we have to put out a call to them, and they're going to send it to us, and then we can give it to you." And I said, "Oh wow, how long is that going to take?" It's like, "No, don't worry, we'll have it in 3 days." I was like, "Okay," you know, that's a resource.
I know that they even have in some of the universities that you can request like grant money to do research and actually travel to a university to go through their archives to do your research paper.
There are things that you hear about that you just can't believe. Oh, well, I know that's an option, but who's doing that? There's someone out there that's doing that. Yeah, find that person and ask them
find that person.
Find that person and be like, "Well, how'd you do it? Like, what was the first step?" Because a lot of times, I remember there were 2 things at my university told me. They said, you can make your own major, and you can study abroad in so many different places, organized by my university, or just like that book that was at University of Ohio, or excuse me, the Ohio State University. Excuse me. That you can partner with all these different people, all these different places. There's someone out there that's done it, and there's someone out there who's done it recently. Go find that person. Another thing. You asked me what some of the greatest resources of the university. Just saying that, you know, I'm your classmate, you know, I'm your colleague.
Connections.
That is great, because there's so many times where I want to go and study abroad in Spain and study, you know, biology or botany. I saw that you did this 4 years ago. Straight email. I'm interested. Can you help me? More often than not, you're going to get a response back, because that person is already saying, "Wow, this person saw what I did and they find that interesting." And I think that's cool.
Correct. Which is why we're doing this.
Greatest resource, just other people.
Other people. Connecting.
Yeah.
And having similar. So, for example, us doing this podcast is to have these discussions so we can connect and be like, "Oh, I didn't know you were interested in that. I've always was curious about that subject." And so you sharing your experiences. And funny enough, the library is something I don't think students understand that is a major source.
Don't sleep on it.
Yes.
It's absolutely amazing.
And you were also saying the mentorship. It's interesting, even students can mentor each other.
Yeah.
As you were saying, you know, contacting students like, "Hey, I saw you over here."
Yeah.
So it's definitely all about connections, and you just have to have that dialogue.
Yeah.
Open the dialogue up. And then, wow, we're now connecting here and here. And you were saying cross-disciplinarian. You were like, "Oh no, I need to be not the master of something, but the master of," or what was your term?
Well, just
jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades. It's like it's just knowing what you. It's just knowing what you like. It's just knowing what you like. And it's and knowing what you don't like.
And knowing what you don't like.
And knowing that. I mean, there are times where I think, like, you know, for example, people are, you know, if you want to go and be, you know, a structural engineer, and I'm like, you know, I'll see a building, I'm like, "Wow, that's really cool. How did that person make that?" You know, I think that's interesting, but I know that I'm not the person who's going to actually, you know, learn the STEM, you know, go out and, you know, apply all of those classes, all of the knowledge that it takes to be able to do that. You know, God bless him, it's not me. It's not me. But I can appreciate it. And I can get close to it such that, you know, I want to be helpful as much as I can. But when it comes to, okay, who's actually going to be the engineer for this structure, I'll be like, "Okay, all right, well, I'm going to hand it over to you, and I'm going to really enjoy watching you do your thing." So it's acknowledging that, you know, you have something to contribute. Someone else has something to contribute. Nobody's Superman. Nobody's doing everything.
So
you don't want to be that person.
Literally what you're saying is you're the nuance. of the thing that is the grand idea?
All I can do is,
you're part of the nuance of the grand idea.
That's true. That's true. But I look at it as much smaller than that. I am just the person who helps these two people communicate, because you are a superstar. You are a superstar in what you do, and you are so focused in, like, imagine two, just amazing minds. You can have an incredible artist and you can have an incredible engineer, and they're both, when you get them going, they're both riffing hard on what they know. But when you say, okay, talk to each other and, plan, a lunch where you guys are going to talk to each other, sometimes they just may not get there because they are incredibly bright and persistent in doing what they do. But sometimes you just need to, okay, how can we choreograph and orchestrate something to get this together quickly? How can we do this? And that's where I've been just really lucky to find myself always being in a place where I can communicate to these two guys and be like, okay, let's plan an evening, let's plan an event, let's do something at the same time. Hey, I mean, that's what I like doing. And I've been very lucky to find success in it. But just knowing that I liked it, I wanted to know, how can I apply it? How can I formalize it? How can I make it a career? How can I make it a job? Because that's what's really important. This is where college is the place where you find what you like. And then, once you really understand what you like, you seek that mentorship, you seek that network, you seek people who are there maybe just a couple of years, like that person's where I want to be in 3 years. And you reach out. And reach out to more than one, because maybe that one person's not going to get back to you, but maybe out of the 15 people that you reach out to, maybe one does. But that's all you need. So just identifying what you like, knowing that, owning it, and then reaching out to people who look like, wow, they're doing what I like, but this is a little bit more sophisticated than where I am now. It's because they've gone through a process that you've yet to go through. For me, the process that I did not go through when I was an undergrad was being able to formalize what I liked. How do you make these two people work together in a seamless way? And if there's ever going to be a dispute, we know how to handle it. It was when I reached out to someone, I said, hey, you are building incredible solar plants. You are building these incredible light rail projects. How did you do that? And they said, oh, well, it's nothing. I'm not an engineer. I'm involved in it. I'm not building the train. I'm not building the solar panel. I'm not building the wind turbine. What I am doing is talking to company A and company B that are really good at what they do, but left to their own devices, maybe the communication isn't as strong. So all I do is I'm a communication specialist, or I am the attorney that makes sure that when they get together to do a deal, that their contract is sound, so they don't have any problems. They don't really have as much opportunity to fight and get into a dispute about what's going on. Or if they do, we're going to make sure that this dispute is handled amicably, very smooth. And I said, okay, well, that's really cool. All right, I wouldn't want to be there in 3 years. Like, that guy has the job that I want. Like, how do I get there? Identify who has the job that you want. And then you just start asking questions.
Thank you very much, Ben. It has been a wonderful evening speaking with you.
Thank you.
Your education and where you've gone with it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For allowing me to spend some time with you and talk to you about where you've gone and your path to get there.
It's a trip down memory lane.
Trip down memory lane. And it's just wonderful to have a young black man who's successful. And it's refreshing because a lot of times you don't hear these things, you don't know about these things. And these different fields that you go into, and just your pathway, how you got there. Like, I'm going to be a lawyer, contracts, because I love to see other people's dreams become reality, go into fruition. And it's brilliant. Brilliant what you're doing.
Hey, it all starts with a question. That's why. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We appreciate it.